I just think it's bad for the economy. Now, on the other hand, and it seems to go against everything Donald Trump has ever believed in. I mean, I think he's always understood this. And I've been reading the same things you've been reading, and frankly, I just haven't been believing it.
Yeah, Sean Hannity there, absolutely horrified at the notion that President Donald Trump could let taxes rise on the wealthy. Yes, he's not the only Republican who's unhappy with the idea. And before we get to them, Cenk, are you surprised that this is the one Trump policy that Hannity cannot get behind, and he's being incredibly vocal about it?
Yeah, so I want to break down all of the tax policies because, God, there's massive misinformation here. But no, I am not at all surprised that Sean Hannity finally defies Donald Trump when it's tax cuts for the rich. He's like, no, the whole point of the Republican Party is tax cuts for millionaires like me. Okay, yeah, that's what we thought, Sean. Cry more, bitch. Anyway, let's just tell you the rest of the story.
I need that on a t-shirt. Okay. As we discussed on Wednesday, Trump is open to letting taxes increase on the rich rather than including them in the massive tax cuts that Republicans want to pass. Two sources familiar with the discussions told Fox News Digital that the White House aides have been quietly floating a proposal to House Republicans that would raise the tax rate for people making more than $1 million to 40%. But Hannity and economist Steve Moore think that could be a really bad political strategy. Let's watch.
I don't think it's going to happen, but it's a threat. And we've got, my old friend Bob Novak, you remember Bob Novak from Evans and Novak, he used to say, the only reason God put Republicans on the earth is to cut our taxes. And if they're raising them, I think it's going to split our party. I think Republicans will lose the midterm elections. Don't go there. You remember what happened in 1992. Remember when Bush raised taxes? We lost everything.
Right. Pretty unbelievable, to be honest. What Republicans would go forward with a tax increase when they should be making the Trump tax cuts permanent, eliminating tax on tips, Social Security, and overtime? Because that's what the president promised. Why would they go in any other direction?
Is it just me, or does Sean Hannity sound like he's been up all night worrying about this? I mean, it just sounds off. He's really upset about this. Yesterday, MSNBC brought on Mark Short, the former chief of staff for VP Mike Pence, to give his thoughts on taxing the rich. You can probably guess what he had to say.
I think that where we were in 2017 was a pretty conservative free market approach to pro-growth policies. I think what you see now is the latest shift toward populism inside the party, where there's probably some who think this polls well. I think it's terrible economics. I think it's terrible policy. But I think there's no doubt that there's parts in the White House that are pushing Congress to adapt this. And I think, as you said, it's a juggling act as to how you get to the deficit numbers they're trying to get. I think ultimately there's probably more effort inside the House to try to find cuts there in the Senate. On Medicaid, Allie, people don't appreciate that when we passed tax reform in 2017, there were about 51 million Americans on Medicaid.
Yeah.
Today it's about 78 million. That's an enormous growth. And we're not being honest with the American people if we just say we're not going to touch it at all.
Now, the Republicans that support or are open to tax hikes on the rich include President Donald Trump, Steve Bannon, another one, Senator Josh Hawley, House Freedom Chair Andy Harris. Republicans that have come out against tax hikes on the rich include Senator Ted Cruz, House Majority Leader Steve Scalise, and one Mike Pence. So jump in, Cenk. You first. Does anything here surprise you? And it's that last thing that Mark Short said, that it's time to be honest with people. We've got to touch Medicare.
Yeah,
Medicaid.
Yeah. So okay, let's break this down. First of all, Sean Hannity said this will split the party. This is going from 37% to 40%. So that's 3%, and only for people making over $1 million. Is half the Republican Party millionaires? And that's why it's going to split it? And no, the Republican Party these days is filled with people who are making a lot less. And so it's not the Republican voters they care about. It's the Republican power players, the politicians, the donors, the elites of the Republican Party, they love tax cuts for the rich because they're all rich and all their donors are rich. So now look at this trick, and then I'm going to come to Mark Short. So if the Trump tax cuts expire, the tax rate for people making above $600,000 is going to go from 37 to 39.6. So that would affect the millionaires because they're above $600,000 anyway, right? So if the Trump tax cuts go away, this so-called tax increase on the rich or on millionaires is irrelevant, totally irrelevant. So it's a trick in the first place. They're not actually going to raise taxes on the rich. So what they're doing is they're keeping all of the other tax cuts for the rich and for corporations, but just making an 3% exception for millionaires at the top of the bracket. So that's microscopic. It's meant to trick you into thinking we're real populist and we're going after the rich. But even that 3 measly percent for millionaires gets Sean Hannity and Mark Short and the entire Republican establishment livid, right? Jesus Christ with their greed. So Mark Short's a guy that I supported when he was defending Mike Pence during January 6th, because Trump supporters were chanting, "Hang Mike Pence, hang Mike Pence." So when Mark Short was saying, "Hey, maybe we shouldn't murder the vice president," I agreed with him. Okay, but but that extends to nothing else. So when now he says, "Hey, you know what? These poor millionaires, an extra 3% to the poor millionaire, we should cut Medicaid instead." Yeah, that's what I thought. That's what I thought. And that's exactly what they're going to try to do, by the way. No matter how they, how much lipstick they put on this pig, it's still going to be at least $5 trillion in tax cuts, the overwhelming majority of which are going to go to corporations and the richest people on earth. And these sons of bitches are so greedy that they're still complaining about 3%. Right.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, there wouldn't be a play here if there weren't some kind of like catch. And so when I heard about this, I was like, well, this really isn't going to affect the people who we think are going to be affected because there's this sort of off with their heads sort of mentality that people get in their minds when it comes to we're gonna raise taxes for millionaires, but it's much more nuanced again, and it's a thinner slice of the pie. And I think on the economic issues, these are the issues that can really hurt Trump and his administration if they screw that up, that piece. See, he can toy with constitutional issues because they're so complicated. And the immigration issue is complicated. And they're trying to muddy the waters with this and their propaganda. But the economy is different. They're, who's paying the taxes, who's paying their fair share. And the media can, I feel like that's more of a slam dunk in terms of like taking him down. And so I think this is a catch. I think this is a game. And I just don't know what the end game in Congress is for the House to be debating this, because it exposes fractures. And I don't know what I wonder if Trump is just doing this out of self-preservation.
Yeah, no, of course. So let me break that down, because the entire tax bill is where the rubber hits the road, and it's going to be really interesting. So they say, well, look, yeah, we're going to cut taxes on the rich by about $5.5 trillion, right? But don't worry, because we're going to add tax cuts for people who are getting tips and for people on Social Security and these other categories. And then on top of that, they're saying, no, Medicaid, we're not going to cut Medicaid. Don't be ridiculous, right? So, and then, all the Doge cuts. Well, but Doge cuts were at a maximum $130 billion. And if they do give Golden Dome to Elon's SpaceX, that's going to be like 100 times that number, right? So they saved absolutely nothing from Doge. And so that's what they were doing, all these things. Oh, the tariffs are gonna give us an extra $6 trillion. And Doge is gonna save trillions of dollars. The gold card is gonna create trillions of dollars. These are all excuses they have set up to put another giant, at a bare minimum, $5 trillion hole in the debt, right? And remember, Trump is the very worst president on debt accumulation. He added over $8 trillion to the debt in just 4 years. And you know what Trump's go-to move was in business? Just borrow as much as you possibly can and then don't pay it. He did 6 massive bankruptcies, and when asked about it, he'd be like, well, it's good business. You borrow the money and then you don't pay them back. But when you're the American government, if we don't pay them back, the dollar crashes, the economy crashes, and so we don't have that luxury. He's piling up all of this debt on top of your heads, and we're all gonna have to pay for it. And when we go to have to pay the piper, guess what the rich people are gonna do? They're gonna be nowhere to be found, right? Oh, golly gee, the taxes are higher now? I gotta go to Switzerland, I gotta go here, I gotta go there. And they're gonna stick us with the goddamn bill, okay? So especially if you're a right winger and you cared about the deficit, and I believe you that you cared, I believe that you were lied to by the Sean Hannitys of the world and got you to believe that Republicans care about balancing budgets. You wanna know the last Republican president that balanced the budget? Dwight Eisenhower. They don't give a goddamn about balancing the budget. All they care about is cut taxes for the rich. That's why Stephen Moore, the guest on Sean Hannity there, was like, I remember Bob Novak used to say the whole party is to fillet the rich. I know, we all know, right? So he's like, how come we're not on our hands and knees for the rich anymore? And over 3 goddamn percent, okay? So, and again, it's a trick because if you get rid of the Trump tax cuts, that 3% exists anyway. So all of this to get to the point, Brian and Sharon. So when they go to pass the budget, people are roughly going to find out what's in the bill. And when they find out that a huge portion is going to more corporate tax cuts and an enormous portion is going to the richest people in the country, and yes, they're gonna have to cut Medicaid, and yes, it's still gonna leave at least $4 trillion unaccounted for. What are people gonna do? So look, and when are Trump voters gonna catch on to the fact that Trump is no different than any other Republican? His whole thing is serve the rich, serve the rich, serve the rich. And so in this case, I'd love to give him credit if this plan was real. And you know me, I mean, you just saw it yesterday when he said, no, we're not gonna listen to Netanyahu and we're not gonna attack Iran. I gave him a world of credit, right? But if he said, for example, oh, no, this debt's out of control. No, we're gonna make sure that this budget is balanced. So no, I'm not doing any tax cuts for the rich. I'm not doing any corporate tax cuts, and I'm gonna give to the average guy, and we're gonna balance the budget. Oh my God, I give him all the credit in the world. Everybody could rip my head off. I don't mind as long as he did the right thing. But he's not gonna do the right thing. And even for this small little stupid trick, Hannity and all the other rich Republicans are all bent out of shape. And now if you watch Sean Hannity, you know with absolute certainty, the only thing he cares about is the rich in this country. And that's not overly surprising given that, according to reporting, he makes $45 million a year. He is not on your side, he's on his side.
It's funny, I always think of Barack Obama when he would say, the guy lives in a country club. The guy owns the country club. He's not like you. I mean, and most recently, and I don't know, you may have spoken about it on the show. I don't know, I hope you did, but he's gilded the Oval Office with all these gold finishes. Yeah. And he's replaced all of the frames. He hired an interior designer to put these gold appliques on the fireplace. And I mean, he's turned the Oval into like Saddam's palace. It's just, and no offense to anyone from the former regime. I'm just, if you're into gold, but I mean, it's like, yeah. The message visually screams, I golf, I'm obese, obese because I love delicious food. I live in a club. I'm surrounded by gold, but yet I'm one of you. Talk about a despotic kind of authoritarian image. It's just so grotesque that folks find connection there when we, never mind the underpinnings of our democracy is just based on this objection to grotesque royalty and wealth and that gilded sort of like flashiness. It's just, even he's gold. He's gold. His skin is gold. I mean, we're not.
Yeah.
I'm sunburned, from working outside in my yard. I mean, he doesn't do that. So I wonder, Jake, why can't we connect that he is not of us? He is not a populist. He is not. He's a fraud.
Yeah, look, unfortunately, I have an answer for that too, which is that the Democrats, this is such a layup for them. I mean, they should go uber populist here. They should, attack him with everything they have, because this is an enormously winning issue. The average American versus the millionaires, right? And billionaires. So, but the reason historically Democrats don't do that is because all of their donors are millionaires and billionaires. So their donors get upset and offended when they do quote unquote class warfare, right? That's what they call it. So that's why every tax cut magically passes, with the Democrats in the hallway singing, "There was nothing we could do. There was nothing we could do." And so whenever they're in office, they can't get anything done. And whenever the Republicans are in office, another one got past the goalie. Look at that, another 4 trillion for the rich, another 2 trillion for the rich, another 5 trillion from the rich. So if the Democrats block this, I will be shocked, because tax cuts for the rich always pass. And that's because there's fake opposition. So Trump's a fake populist, the Democrats are fake opposition. This whole thing is rigged to serve the donor class.
Thank you. Yes, you're right. Thank you. I forgot. But yeah,
I will say this. You asked a couple minutes ago, Cenk, about when MAGA would, catch on and realize that what Trump is and what he's doing. I do think there's a chance. I'm not saying it's going to matter, but I think there's a chance that more will catch on, because there's that guy Elon who's just always hanging around, and they're not so keen on him. They don't like him so much. And so I feel like that's the reminder that you're not really for us when people don't necessarily pay attention to the details, the devil in the details of his tax plan, and perhaps the messaging and the media, and doesn't do the greatest job of breaking it all down about what it's going to mean for you and your household. But I don't know. That's just me.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.